Welcome, brave souls, to the chilling depths of horror in detail. Today we're going to share scary Wendigo horror stories. First story, the Wendigo is near. This is a story which happened to me and my friend a few years back. I work in a national park as a park ranger. When my life was relatively normal, I had just landed a job at a national park. Life was good as I was working with my buddy Rob. The second day was strange. We found bear traps on the ground. We never put them there. Other than that, another day in paradise, but throughout the night, I swear I heard a loud screech coming from the woods near my watchtower. I looked and saw nothing. I just shrugged it off after a little while. As of lately, we have been finding small animal corpses around the woods. This is normal since we have bears all over. It's just that these marks were too big to belong to a bear. What's even weirder is we found a tooth inside of a bloody deer. This tooth was too huge and sharp to belong to a bear. I think we have a new animal in these woods. Today we found a bear hanging from a tree and gutted. I nearly threw up. No animal in the park could do this. Boss told us from now on to stay at the watchtowers. I kept being reassured that everything would be fine, but at this point I just couldn't be too sure anymore. Lately the screeches have been more frequent. I'm having trouble focusing. When I was younger, I was told of a creature that fed off people and animals. It could also mimic voices. It was called a Wendigo. Of course, I don't believe in that paranormal crap, but something was taking out animals throughout the park. I swear I heard Rob call me from outside of my watchtower. He yelled, "Hey Trent, you got to come see this." I nearly left, but I just felt that his voice was off, nearly distorted. I looked down at my watchtower to see Rob, his insides dangling in the breeze. My boss ruled this out as an accident. That still didn't stop the police from questioning me. I know. I heard his voice. I saw something in the woods. Let me explain. This creature I saw had huge antlers, an animal skull as a mask, and it was over 11 feet tall. The night began normally, until the screeches began again. I looked down, only to see this creature eating my boss's lifeless body. I got a good look at it before it ran off and out of sight. The police have been very suspicious of me lately. How could they not be? Both of the people I worked with are dead. I tried to explain what I saw to the police. Of course, nobody believed me. It all led to me being terminated. I've decided I'm not going to let this creature ruin my life. I have done research on this Wendigo. I plan to break into the park tonight. I will end this. I'm in the park. I hear the screeches and I am following them. I hear the voices of my boss and Rob. They're telling me that they are okay and I should come meet them by my watchtower. I know from my research that the Wendigo creature is really good at tricking people. I just kept wandering around the park. I was wondering until I heard my mother's voice. She died when I was 6. My instincts told me no, but I had missed her so much. Don't worry, Mom, I'm coming. Second story. Weird creature I saw as a kid. This all happened when I was a kid, but the other day I was telling someone this random childhood memory and realized how incredibly weird it was. My grandma used to own this small section of wood. We'd do there often in the summer. The adults would sit around and have some drinks and snacks, and the kids would go out and play. The area had small patches of woodland, surrounded by farmland. One day my cousins and I were walking along a dirt path, woods on one side, open farmland on the other. That section of woods was owned by someone else, so we never went in there, just walked by it. We were just casually chatting, pointing a shed they had in there cause it looked like the one my grandma had. Suddenly something came storming through the woods, sort of winding around the trees, running at us. My best description of it now would be a centaur. Front of it was pretty big, like the size of a very tall, buff adult man, and the back was much shorter and looked like some kind of animal like a deer. There's a lot of bushes and undergrowth there, so as a normal human, running through there at that speed was just impossible. We all freaked out and ran back to the adults. We all told them pretty much the same story of what we saw. Some older cousins came back with us to see if they could identify the creature, but there was nothing there. The wooded areas are small, thin strips, so there's not many wild animals there. Mostly pheasants, hares, and the odd small deer. The farmers nearby kept cows and horses, which we'd seen often enough before, and this definitely didn't look like them. It was a very different shape and size. Anyone know what on earth we saw that day? Third story. I saw a shapeshifter. I am hoping that by posting here, I may connect with someone who has also experienced something similar or have heard of others who have experienced similar. Here's my story. This experience happened at approximately 1:20 a.m. ish Thanksgiving morning 2018. I live in SW Washington State and had rented a vacation home in Lincoln City, Oregon to accommodate mine and my sister's family who was flying in from Hawaii for the Thanksgiving holiday. We had all arrived at the rental around 3 p.m. About 7:30 p.m. my son started yelling for me. He said my 1-year-old grandson had gotten into my case with my blood pressure meds, and sure enough, one of my pills was missing. We panicked and called Poison Control, who told us to call 911 ASAP. They sent an ambulance and took my grandson to a small hospital in the area. The staff there did what they could, but told us they were not equipped for the situation, and my grandson needed to be transported to Randall's Children's Hospital in Portland, Oregon. So, on Thanksgiving Eve, a pediatric ambulance was sent from Randall's to Lincoln City, about a 2.5 to 3 hour drive due to holiday traffic. It arrived around midnight to pick up my grandson. My son's wife rode an ambulance with my grandson back to Randall's. Me and my son went back to the beach house to get diapers and clothes and started the drive to Randall's at about 12:30 a.m. Okay, so here's where we encountered something that I and my son will never forget for as long as we live. We had been on the road for about an hour and had just passed the Spirit Mountain Casino on Highway 18, and we're in the area that was all hay farmland in between Bellevue and McMinnville. The road has 2 lanes only and is definitely a long, deserted road, especially at that hour of night. The ride had been very emotional, as I felt extremely guilty for having packed my meds in a side pocket of tote bag where my grandson was able to access it. I was terrified for him and crying. My son was also upset, and although he was trying to hide it, I knew he blamed me. Anyway, here is the crazy part. As we were driving, I noticed my son slightly drifting in the road. He was falling asleep. Twice I asked him if he was okay to drive and to be careful. So, being that I was very concerned that he may fall asleep, I was very aware and up watching him in the road, making sure he would not fall asleep. As we were driving down this road, going about 55 miles per hour, in the distance we both saw what at first we thought was a deer running in our lane of the road, coming straight at us, but within a couple seconds we realized it was not a deer, but a golden-colored horse. It must have been about 250 to 300 feet away at that point. It got closer fast as, like I said, we were traveling at about 55 miles per hour. As it got about 150 feet away, it leaped upwards and morphed instantly into a giant owl right before our eyes. The wingspan stretched past our lane in the road. Me and my son estimate to be between 12 to 15-foot wingspan. This thing was enormous. As soon as we saw that, my son yelled out WTF and swerved the car to the left to avoid it. And just as he did this, the owl immediately landed about 50 feet ahead of us to our right in that little area outside the white line, like the bike path area. The owl kind of tucked its head and wings into its chest as if it were scared or trying to hide. As we drove past it, I got a good look at it out my window, and with its head and wings tucked in, it still came up to about the bottom of the window of the Subaru. It seemed a little wider than the width of a beach ball, so about 3.5 foot tall and 20 to 24 inches all the way around the body. This thing was mind-blowingly big. Now, as soon as this happened, it was almost as if a trance came over us. It affected both of us in the same ways. 1. We both did not speak a word the entire rest of the drive at all until we got to hospital. 2. We both lost all feelings of being tired, and it felt like a calm alertness and awareness took over. I never even felt the fear he would fall asleep after the encounter. 3. The memory of the experience was crystal clear, but the curiosity and wonder or even awe did not hit us until driving back through the same area the next afternoon after my grandson was discharged. It's like we suddenly both said, And what the heck was that thing we saw last night? And it all started pouring out from both of us. The exact same thing that we saw. My son's wife was asking us questions about it, and we were blurting out the exact same answers. It was mind-blowing. Till this day we talk about it and wonder, what did we witness that night? We both agree that this seemed to be some mythical creature or shapeshifter. We both also agree that whatever it was good and meant us no harm and may have been a guardian. Or maybe it was something that we witnessed by accident and maybe weren't meant to see. Either way, just the fact that we both saw it. I feel extremely lucky and blessed to have seen proof with my own eyes that animal spirits or shapeshifters or magical creatures do exist. Makes me wonder about stories of fairies and mermaids and Pegasus. And Nessie may just be true. If you got to the end, thank you. I'm not very good at writing. Has anyone experienced similar? Fourth story. We don't talk to the thing in the woods. I used to love the outdoors. Camping, hiking, hunting, fishing, you name it, I was taking an opportunity to participate in it. My girlfriend was the same. We had bonded over our mutual love of nature and the peace that it brought. Now, I'm terrified to spend any time in the woods. The thing I heard there, its voice still haunts my dreams. We decided on a weekend trip to the Mogollon Rim of northern Arizona. It was going to me, my girlfriend Allison, my friend Amanda, and her husband Dave, and my sister Maria with her boyfriend Gabe. The last two didn't like the idea of roughing it in a tent, so we all went on a nice cabin in a secluded part of the forest near a lake. The day of the drive, we all packed into my SUV and began the hours-long journey up into the mountains. After what felt like days, we came upon the turnoff given to us by the man who had rented us the cabin. It was at least another hour along uneven dirt road into the depths of the forest before we found ourselves pulling up to our rather luxurious cabin. I couldn't hide my disappointment. I was hoping for something a little less modernized, maybe without natural plumbing or electricity. Maria and Gabe were thrilled, and the others seemed excited too. So, I told myself I'd enjoy this little slice of heaven out in the middle of nowhere. After all, how often would I get to stay in a place like this? We unpacked our things, found the key where the text said it would be, and went inside to find another note. The septic system was emptied a few days ago, and the cabin hasn't been used since. You'll find fuel for the generator in a shed about 5 minutes walk from the cabin. Keep the doors locked and the lights off after 10, otherwise you might get unwanted attention. I hope you enjoy your stay. Ernest. I read it out loud and laughed. We've got indoor toilets, power, and all the other modern amenities we could ever ask for. I hope no one thinks we're roughing it out here, I teased. My sister just rolled her eyes. Dave and I finished unpacking things and gathered up fishing rods for everyone. The lake's a 20-minute hike from here. Anyone feel like going fishing? Gabe and Maria declined, but the rest of us made the journey out to the lake, and much to our surprise, it was empty. Got the whole thing to ourselves, Dave said with a slap to my back. Hope the fish are biting. We spent the entire day out on the lake, laughing, fishing, drinking, and having a great time. After several wonderful hours, we collected our catches and began the hike back to the cabin. By the time we had gotten back, the sun was disappearing behind the mountains, giving us just enough light to find our way back to the cabin without injury. Upon arrival, we noticed the lights were already on. Guess they got the fuel for the generator, Allison said. Amused, didn't think they'd even leave the cabin. That night, we fried up our fish and settled in for a pleasant evening. Even Gabe and Maria enjoyed the fish. The trip was already looking great. We continued this way for 3 days. Everyone enjoying the trip in their own way, with Dave, Allison, Amanda, and myself often leaving early in the morning for a hike or to spend some time out by the lake, and Gabe and Maria hanging out at the cabin. Every night, we'd kill the lights at around 9:45 to follow the wishes of our host, and every morning we'd be up bright and early for another adventure. Everything was turning up aces. We were all having a great time. Then, the fourth night came. Most of us had spent the day on a 6-hour hike through rough trails, and we were beat. We had crashed early, reminding Gabe and Maria that the lights needed to go out by 10 so we could avoid things like bears. They rolled their eyes but agreed. I woke at 2:30 in the morning to the sound of panicked knocking. Slowly, I moved to sit up, but I felt Allison's hand seize my shoulder as she looked at me and shook her head fiercely. "Hello." I heard a man's voice call from the front door of the cabin. "Hey, I'm sorry to bother you all so late. It's just, your light was on and I'm kind of lost. I'm trying to find my friends at the trailhead. I think I got turned around somewhere." "Hello." The knocking resumed. I opened my mouth to speak, but Allison covered it, whispering, "We don't talk to the thing in the woods." I blinked, staring at her in shock. After a while, the knocking stopped, and Allison appeared to relax a little. Until we heard the sound of something gently tapping the window of our bedroom. As I turned my head to look, Allison seized it and kissed me passionately. The tapping continued for several long minutes, during which she held that kiss in my face so that it remained away from the window. When the tapping stopped, she let me go. Her face was ghostly white. "It knows we're here now. It won't stop. It's going to come back." "What is?" I asked, confused. "The thing in the forest." "What is it?" I pressed. She just shook her head and rolled over to go back to sleep. "We need to leave tomorrow," she muttered. I didn't sleep much the rest of the night. The sound of the man at the door and his desperation, Allison's insistence that we ignore it, all of it seemed so strange to me. Like there was a piece of this puzzle I was missing. When I finally woke from my restless slumber, Amanda and Dave were already up and making coffee. As I arrived, Dave turned to me and handed me a mug. "You tell Allie a scary story last night or something? She's spooked. White as a sheet. Never seen her like that." I blinked, staring at my coffee and looking up at Dave. He seemed chipper as ever, as though nothing strange had happened the evening prior. "You didn't hear all that knocking last night? The guy who got lost?" I asked, baffled. "Nah, Mandy and I were out like lights. Must have slept well past dawn, too. Man, that hike took a lot out of us. We were thinking of taking it easy tonight, you know? Maybe just head out to the lake and spend some time together." I nodded, looking back down at my cup. "Allie said she wants to go home." I murmured. "Well, that's no good." Amanda called from behind. I just got done talking to her. She said you guys had a bit of a fright last night, that there was a bear or something trying to get in. Or something. I replied, shaking my head. "Look, I think it's a good idea. We should head back into town, maybe just go home." Dave frowned. "We paid a lot of money to stay here for a week, man. We've only stayed 4 nights. Can we at least stay one more, so it feels like we gained something? I know you've got the car and all, but I think maybe Allie just got spooked. We shouldn't rush to leave." I sighed. There was no way I was convincing these two to leave, but maybe Maria and Gabe would be willing to listen. Just because your little girlfriend had a bad dream doesn't mean we should all pack up and run away. Maria stated flatly, "We're having a great time out here." When I found Allison, she was still very shaken, her eyes locked in the middle distance, staring deep into the tree line at something that wasn't there. "Hey," I murmured, causing her to jump. "Sorry, can we talk?" She turned to face me full on. "No one wants to leave, do they? They all believe it's nothing, that I'm overreacting to a bear or something." I nodded, and she sighed dejectedly, finding a seat on one of the chairs on the porch. "I'm not crazy," she said darkly. "I've heard about this thing. My granddad and dad used to me stories about the thing in the forest. They told me to never say anything to it, never acknowledge it or look at it, because if I did and it recognized me, it would take me away. It would take me away and steal everything about me." She shivered. The way they told the stories, it was like they had seen something like that happen. She looked to me, tears forming in her eyes. "Remember how I told him my dad died when I was young? That he was mauled by a bear?" I nodded. "He wasn't. That thing got him. It got him and took everything that made my dad himself away. It left only what it didn't need." I blinked as she told me this story. "How do you know that? How can you be sure it wasn't a bear or something?" I pressed. "Because I heard him. The night after the search teams found what was left of him, I heard my dad calling to us. We all did," she whispered. "And my grandpa held me close, and he told me we don't talk to the thing in the woods. We need to leave," she stated again. We can't stay here. I sighed, nodding. How about I get us a motel back in town? It's only a 3-hour drive, and I can come back for the others tomorrow. She shook her head desperately. They won't be here tomorrow, don't you see? It's going to take them. They won't listen. Allie, look, I get what you're saying. You're scared, and it sounds like whatever happened was very traumatic. I can take you away from here, but I can't just force the others to leave, too. She nodded in defeat and looked to me. I'll stay tonight, but I want you to stay with me, and I want you to listen to everything I tell you. I offered a reassuring nod and took her hand. You have my word. We spent the day at the cabin. Allison spent time reinforcing the bedroom door with planks of wood, much to the amusement of everyone else. I followed along with her, providing her whatever help I could, and by the time night fell, our room was a veritable fortress. Don't talk to the thing in the woods, she told everyone before we killed the lights and went to bed. 2:30 a.m. The door thundered with desperate knocking. Hello? Please. I need help. Hello? Come on. I know you're in there. I saw the car outside. Please. The knocking rattled the front windows of the house. I heard Gabe scream. I heard him stomping toward the door. I rose to help, to stop, to do something, but Allison kept an iron grip on my shoulder, shaking her head fervently. Hello? Is someone there? I heard a voice. Please. It was a different voice, feminine this time. Yeah. I'm coming. How the hell did you people find this place anyway? I heard the door unlock and fly open. You left the light on for me. The foo dash. I heard Gabe cry out, but it was cut short. There were pained gurgles, the sounds of flesh being torn into. Then I heard Maria scream in terror. There was a crash, as if something massive had collided with the furniture in the living room of the cabin. Help me. Oh my God. Gabe, it got him. Help. Don't run so fast, Maria. I heard Gabe's voice call out. I can barely keep up. What? I think she stopped running because all I heard was a scream. There was a click and a loud bang. Dave had brought his hunting rifle with him. I heard a shriek, inhuman and unearthly. Another bang, followed by another shriek. I don't know what the hell you are, but you aren't leaving alive. Another shot. Why not? We could all be friends here. Maria's voice chided. Silly boy, silly boy. Bang. Silly boy, Gabe's voice mocked. The gunshots stopped. I heard a grunt and cry of pain. Then I heard Amanda. Dave. Oh my God. A crash. Then the house fell eerily silent. Allison clenched my shoulder like a vice. Footsteps resounded, heavy and purposeful. There was a knock at our door. Hey man, we're ready to go. I heard Dave's voice call out before another knock resounded. Come on, silly. Maria called. It's early enough for us to get a head start on the day, exclaimed Amanda. This thing was using my friends' voices. I felt the bile creep into my throat. I could barely choke back vomiting as Allison looked desperately at me. Allie, baby girl, why don't you be a good little ranger and open the door for Daddy, eh? I've got so many things to show you. The color in her face drained completely. I stared at the door in horror as the voice continued. Daddy doesn't like all this hide and seek. I'm going to come in. The knocking went from gentle to furious, violent banging. I saw the wood begin to splinter between the planks, reinforcing it. Allison looked me dead in the face. We don't talk to the thing in the woods, she murmured. Understand. I nodded. The door exploded and Allie threw the covers over our heads, shielding us from the brunt of the splintering door. Then the calm befell everything again. I could hear it more clearly now. Every step it took sounded like the creaking of ancient branches. Where you, baby? Talk to Daddy. The thing called as it moved deeper into the room. Suddenly, I felt a pressure on the bed. Powerful, spindly branch-like objects wrapped around my form. What's this? Anything to say? Dave's voice cooed. I felt a sharp, stinging pain in my thigh, and as I glanced down, what looked like a collection of gnarled branches woven together to form a claw was driving itself deep into flesh. Allison's hand shot over my mouth. I wanted to scream out in agony, but I bit my tongue. I bit so hard the coppery taste of blood flooded my senses. The world was spinning, The pain was excruciating. No crying, no pain. Something raked across my back. My eyes bulged as I felt warmth trickle from my back and begin to cool on the sheets beneath me. "Oh, that's no fun," Gabe cried out, and then I heard something else. A mixture of animals roaring in unison. Bear, mountain lion, wolf, deer, boar. It was a cacophony of beasts, and they were pissed. I heard slamming against the shelves, with splintering and glass shattering. "Nothing, nothing." Many voices cried in unison. "Talk to me." I said nothing. The thing in our room violently slammed itself into the walls and the decor. It raged for what felt like agonizing hours, and I lay there bleeding. Finally, the noise stopped. "Fine," came a voice neither of us recognized. "Fine." I heard the thing stomp away, and the front door was torn from its hinges. "Fine." I heard a scream outside. We lay there for a while longer, and I felt myself growing lightheaded. The pain was excruciating. When Allison pulled the covers back, I spared a glance at clock. 3:45, a little over an hour. That's all it had been. I wanted to laugh, but as soon as the cool air of the outside hit me, I passed out. I woke at the hospital. Evidently, I had been unconscious for a little over a day. Allison was sitting in a chair next to my bed, bandages covering many small cuts and scrapes. She told me that it took her some effort, but she was able to haul me into the car and get us into town, and that she was sorry for a few bruises on my body that I had likely sustained during our flight from the cabin. She told me that she had gone up with the sheriffs in the morning to show them what had happened. There were no bodies, just a few pieces of gore and plenty of blood. She showed me pictures she had taken of everything that had happened. The cabin was wrecked. The floors, the shelves, the furniture, everything was destroyed. It looked like she tried to avoid it, but I saw the streaks of where my friends had died, too. It has been 2 years. I haven't gone into the woods or camping or fishing since then. Allison and I are married now. I guess a shared trauma like that brought us together. We stay in the desert now, away from the trees, but there have been some nights where I swear I could hear Dave calling for me. Allie assured me that it was just bad dreams, that it didn't come down from the woods, but it didn't help to ease my fears. If this doesn't convince anyone to avoid the woods, then I have only one piece of advice. We don't talk to the thing in the woods. 5th story. A creature from the woods is stalking me. I live 5 miles away from town in the middle of the woods. I've tried calling the police, but they won't help me. Nobody believes me. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. But there's a creature. It's trying to kill me, and I'm scared. I don't know what to do. It started last week. It was boiling hot outside. I had said goodbye to my dog, Sam. He was an old golden retriever and the only company I had. All my friends live in town, and the only way for me to get there is either by walking, which is very tedious, or by riding my bike. I hopped on my bike and grabbed the handlebars, my hands burning from the hot rubber. I work at a factory with low pay. I hate my job, but I'm not going to find a new one anytime soon. I arrived that day as usual, 15 minutes before I'm supposed to start, which means my boss lets me go home 15 minutes earlier. Instead of going home directly after work, I went out with my friends. I knew Sam would be okay since I left him enough food and water. On my way home, it was getting dark. The woods were calm and quiet, but the darkness made it eerie. I only had about a mile left to my home, but there was something I saw that gave me chills. A few yards into the woods, I saw something look at me from behind a tree. I couldn't make out the face, but it had a big hand with long claws, grasping the trunk of the tree as it was peeking out. I wanted to believe it was just some animal, but it looked like nothing I'd seen before. I arrived home, looking behind me as I walked to the front door and unlocked it. I quickly closed the door behind me and was greeted by a happy dog. "Hi, Sam," I said. He was panting, and I understood him. It was like a desert in the house. I opened a few windows, but scared of what I had just seen in the woods, I didn't open them all the way. Since it was getting late, and I still had work tomorrow, I grabbed a snack, brushed my teeth, and went to bed. I couldn't sleep. It was still too hot, so I decided to go open the back door to let in some more air. I passed Sam, who was sleeping heavy on the couch. Before opening the door, I took a quick look outside. Whatever I saw in the woods probably wasn't a threat, right? After opening the door, I went back to bed. It was a little cooler than before, but still very hot. I woke up to a slam coming from outside. I looked out the window. The motion sensor had gone off, and my yard was illuminated. It was probably just a raccoon, I thought to myself, and crawled back into my bed. But apparently the slam had woken up Sam too. He started barking outside. Tired, I sat up on the bed, rubbed my eyes, and started going toward the back door. Something was off. It was no longer hot inside. It was freezing, and it kept getting colder. Sam had stopped barking, and I couldn't see him when I went outside. He had probably run off into the woods, chasing the raccoon. Sam, I called out. He'd usually come running, but now he didn't. Sam, I yelled. Now I heard something in the woods. It was Sam, or so I thought. The woods were dark, and it was hard to see. I squinted, trying to spot Sam. Eventually I saw a figure in the dark woods. Come here, Sam, I said. He didn't come. I started getting worried. My heart was beating very fast. What if it was that thing I saw in the woods earlier? All of a sudden, Sam was tossed into my yard. His throat sliced open. His beautiful golden fur was now covered in blood from claw marks. I was struck with both fear and grief, completely paralyzed and unable to move. Sam, I said with a quivering voice, thinking maybe he was still alive. He didn't move. My mind was clouded, but I knew exactly what had done this. I broke free from my paralyzed state and bolted towards the back door. As I was running, I could hear it behind me. I got inside, turned around, then I saw it for a split second, and it was moving fast. I shut the door and locked it. I sighed in relief, but then I heard it scratching and slamming against the door. As it was busy, I quickly went to close every window I had opened. But I had forgotten one window, the one in my bedroom. I entered my room, and there it was. Its big claws grasping, trying to get the window open. I quickly slammed the window on its hands. I could see its face now. It let out a loud screech, but its mouth wasn't moving. Its face looked like that of a human corpse, but more distorted. Its eyes wide open, yet staring at nothing. Even as I pressed the window against its hands, its face remained the same, and it terrified me. Eventually it gave up, and I could close the window. It started sprinting back into the woods on all fours. I just now realized how bizarre its body looked. Long, bony limbs and a skinny torso. As it passed Sam, it grabbed him by the legs and pulled him into the woods, dragging him as if he weighed nothing. It was going to eat him. I felt it. It was going to eat my Sam. I sat down on the corner of my bed and started crying. It's visited me every night. I close all my blinds, but it still knows I'm here, and I know when it's outside. It taps my window with its claws, and it won't stop. It's almost as if it's taunting me. I want to record it as proof, but I'm too scared to look at it. The creature terrifies me, and I don't know what to do. It's only gotten worse. I've started hearing the taps coming from my attic now. Sixth story. Wendigo. I grew up in the northernmost part of Wisconsin on a Native American reservation. As a Native American kid, you grow up learning a lot about the mythology of our people, many mythical creatures and spirits, but I was always pretty skeptical, especially when it came to the monsters like Bigfoot or the Mashibiju. But all of that changed one day. It was mid-December, and it was freezing out. Had to be around -10 Fahrenheit. My friend David and I were at his family's house for a dinner. After the dinner was finished, his grandmother asked us if we would go to her cabin and chop some logs. She was going out there while her husband went hunting, and she wanted it to be nice and warm. Of course, we told her we would. What else could we do? So we throw on our jackets and boots and headed out. It wasn't far, less than a mile if we went straight into the woods instead of walking the road. So that's what we did. Trekking through snow that is at times thigh-high isn't fun in the best of situations. But as I said, it was like -10. When we finally arrived, we went inside and started a fire with the few remaining split logs and warmed up a bit. The crackling flames were peaceful, but David kept pacing and looking around uneasily. I asked him what was wrong, and he told me that he felt like he was being watched. I told him that was ridiculous and that we should start chopping wood before it got dark. So we got the axe and went outside and began to chop. We were doing that for about an hour when we first heard it very faintly. It sounded like a girl screaming. We thought it must have been the wind, so we went back to the logs. A few more minutes went by, and we heard it again. This time there was no mistaking it. A girl was yelling for help. Then the wolf howled. We looked at each other and ran in the direction of the scream. We got to a spot where all the snow was packed down and there were paw prints all around. We began to yell for her, try to get her to answer. That is when I heard the noise that haunts my dreams. The only way it could be described is an angry, hateful shriek, and it was close. David started running before me, but I caught up pretty quick. I was mentally kicking myself for leaving the axe back at the cabin, but that is where we were heading. Once we got back, we would be fine. At least that's what I told myself. It didn't quite work out that way. Before we could get into the cabin, David fell. I turned to help him up, but he wasn't there, just a long drag mark. I yelled for him, but got no response. I started moving in the direction of the mark when I got hit. I didn't see what hit me, but I sure felt it. I was knocked off my feet, and my chest felt like it was on fire. I glanced down and saw my jacket was shredded and blood was everywhere. I couldn't breathe. I felt myself about to pass out. Then I saw it. It was tall, had to be about 9 feet, covered in thick, dirty white fur, a mouth full of fangs, but no lips, clawed hands covered in blood, and its sunken eyes were pale yellow. I didn't know what it was, but it no longer mattered. I was losing blood quickly. How could I survive this? When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. My chest was bandaged, and there was a police officer by my bed. When he saw that I was awake, he asked me what happened. I told him everything. He told me that they found David's jacket and boots in the woods, but there was no sign of him. The doctor told me that I was attacked by a bear and that I had hallucinated from blood loss. Eventually, I recovered enough to be released. As far as I know, they never found David, and I haven't gone in the woods since that day. Well, that's my story. Enjoy. 7th story. I saw something in the woods of Nova Scotia, Canada. I need to know what it was. This is a story I haven't really told anyone. Geez, if it weren't for my best friend being present when it happened, I probably would have gaslit myself into believing it was a nightmare or I was just going plain nuts. It's one of those memories that, no matter how much time goes by, you never forget. The details don't get muddy for even a moment. It was 2012, my freshman year of high school. I was 15 years old and had been in the company of my best friend that night. Let's call her Marie. We live in a fairly small town on the eastern coast of Canada, Nova Scotia to be exact. It was an old mining community sat in the middle of the woods. To paint a picture for you, there wasn't really much to do. Our economy had tanked many moons before the rest of the country, so outside of hard drugs or crime, all you really had to do was walk around. Marie and I just so happened to have made walking a bit of a natural pastime. We'd properly mapped out that entire town and its surrounding hills and forests in rain, shine, sleet, or snow. We'd seen everything our little community had to offer, from its vast range of wildlife to its colorful selection of junkies. Please, keep these tidbits in mind before you tell me what we saw was an animal or a human. It was an autumn night, with nothing more for 2 high school girls to do, and homework not being something we specialized in. We decided to go on one of our many town walks. This night in particular had us go a little off the beaten trail. You see, typically we'd have stuck to the main roads, probably ended up at a Tim Hortons before calling it a night and heading back home, but not tonight. Tonight we decided to walk by the food bank. You might be wondering what the draw of an old food bank is. You see, it wasn't just a food bank. Back when we were still a mining town, our food bank was a train station. Trains would come by and pick up coal that was freshly dug from the coal mines and take it all across the country. The old train yard was still there, its now rust-covered cars acting as mock tombs to a much more prosperous era gone by. We'd frequented the train yard with our friends in the past, climbing the cars, sneaking inside, among other things that could have gotten kids hurt. So it wasn't a new place to us at all, and we thought that since it was at the tree line, tucked away in a quiet enough part of town that we could freely walk and chat without the concern of traffic or the like, sidewalks weren't very frequent on that side of town. The sun had already set as we made our way down the long stretch of road, that October chill grasping at our small frames like glue, while the all-too-familiar autumn smell of still-dying plant life had permeated the air. We were talking to each other about what teenage girls typically babble about: boys' Facebook, real important stuff. We had been so caught up in our conversation of the most dire importance that by the time we had made it to the fence that lined the train yard, it genuinely took us a moment to notice the noise. It was a very clear scream. We stopped dead in our tracks and began to stare at each other, not so much out of fear but bewilderment. It didn't quite sound like an animal, but it definitely didn't sound human either. I've gotten up close and personal with enough cougars, wolves, and toddlers to know that this screaming we were hearing was caught somewhere in between man and beast. We stood there, glaring into each other's eyes for a few more seconds before finally turning our attention towards the sound. It was dark, mind you. Not pitch black, as there were some street lights around, though few and far between, but we couldn't see anything. To us, from where we were standing, it was just an old train station turned food bank, a rusted-out fence, and a couple of unused and falling-apart train cars. The screams didn't subside as we were now staring into the foreground of what became a series of mental photographs of the area. It was then I realized that just up ahead, the third and final train car sat partially covered from our viewpoint by a few bushes. I had turned my head to Marie, a mischievous grin donning my face like a cowl. "Last one to the train car has to buy the French vanillas," I exclaimed before quickly jogging along the side of the fence toward the final car. I heard Marie call out, "Hey, wait up," as my feet clearly were acting before my brain. I mean, gosh, this could have been some wild animal or really anything, and I was just running in a blind. I'm not particularly a brave person, and I'm honestly not sure why I did this or anything else that happens from here on out. I rounded the fence, the screaming getting louder and louder as I strode closer and closer. My heart began a race with both anxiety and sheer excitement. I wasn't sure what I was even getting myself into or what I was expecting to see at all. Needless to say, about a second later, the ever-increasing beating from my chest had come to a standstill as my heart had made itself a new home in my throat. I stopped so quickly Marie had slammed right into the back of me, but I was so frozen in fear at what I was now looking at that I barely even budged, the screaming still echoing off of the forest so loudly I could barely hear the faint whisper of an "oh my God" escape Marie's lips. No more than about 20 feet away from us, crouched just under the train car, was a pale, hairless, and naked person. It was just sitting there under the front of the car, screaming into the darkness of the autumn night. Each time it screamed, its arms would leer forward from under the car. They extended out to an unnatural length, almost like two tree branches. We both stood there, frozen in a mixture of fear and confusion. What were they doing? Were they hurt? On drugs? A million questions had begun to race through my head, and one look at Marie's face had told me the same questions were racking her mind as well. We must have stood there just watching in complete awe for what felt like 5 minutes, but realistically, it couldn't have been more than a few seconds, maybe a minute at the most. That's when, in my infinite wisdom, I decided to take a few steps closer. I took my first shaky step towards it. I felt Marie's hand grasp my arm, as if to say don't, but it was clear that her fear outweighed her functionality as I easily broke from her grip just by continuing forward. I had closed about 5 or so feet of distance before stopping. I continued to stare at it from my position for another moment before clearing my throat and stammering the words, "Hey, are you okay?" The second I said those words, any thought of this being a person in need of help had flown out the window and dissipated in the cool nighttime air. Almost as if someone had hit stop on a recording, the screaming it had been happy to emit had ceased, and then it was staring at us. You need to understand, it didn't seem to even move its head. It was just 1 second staring forward into the night and the next right back toward us. A faint growl began to seep into the area now from where it was positioned as I took in the details of its face, in which I had become sure it wasn't human. It had a mouth that seemed to take up the width of most of its face, like a thin crack in a slab of concrete. Its eyes were small, but almost glowed in through the darkness with the most piercing yellow I have ever seen. After it had taken its time to mimic our staring back at us, its crack-like mouth had almost cartoonishly curled into a smiling man-like grin, its lips parting to reveal its long, jagged, and razor-like teeth. The beast and I continued locked into this war of attrition, though it was admittedly clearly more confident in being the dominant one in the exchange of looks. It broke the stare down after another moment, bringing its long, twiggy arms up from under the train car. It wrapped its fingers around the lip of the car and, at a near breakneck speed, kicked itself out from under the train car with a swing, almost like a chimpanzee leaping from one tree branch to another before landing and planting itself on the ground in a pose akin to that of a frog. It continued to its gaze, which now had begun to feel as though I was being sized up. My whole body had been shaking at what was akin to Mach 5. I tried to avert my eyes, look anywhere else, as it felt like any moment I would pass out in sheer terror, but I was drawn in. It felt almost like it had me in some sort of trance. I watched as it slowly began to stand, unfurling itself from the position it was in. It just seemed to get taller and taller until what I was looking at was at its full stance. Its entire body, a pasty gray. Its arms had drooped down well past its knees, and its legs hooked in the back near the calf, almost like a goat. The words "I'm not religious in the slightest," though I was raised Catholic in my younger years, and the only words I could think to muster were "Hail Mary, full of grace," as I began to pray and stared down what I was sure was my end. The creature then leered itself forward, throwing its arms back as its jaw unhinged itself from its skull and dropped down to about its collarbones as it let out one final shriek, the noise embedding itself in my brain and making sure not to ever leave, to forever haunt my nightmares along with the image. I closed my eyes so tight my head began to hurt. I could feel tears streaming down my cheeks with my lips pierced close so tightly that not even a breath could escape them, and then nothing. Silence. Deafening silence. Was it over? That quickly? Was I dead? I slowly opened one eye, peeking out. I saw it. A final look. It had retaken its crouching position, giving us its final glance as well before it turned its back to us. An encounter that had felt like it lasted hours had then swiftly ended in that of a few mere seconds as the creature leapt from its position to the tree-line, and then one final leap into the woods. Just like that, it had vanished. I had almost all but forgotten Marie was there until the softness of her voice had brought me back to earth with a "Kinsey, what the fuck was?" I turned to her. Her skin had gone sheet white and her eyes were red with tears. My legs had finally given out from the sheer exhaustion of it all as I'd fallen to my knees, Marie quickly running over and catching me in an embrace as we silently wept. I'm not sure too much of what happened after that. It's all a blur, really. I told some people at first, but they were quick to laugh me off as a liar or that I was simply being over-imaginative, with Marie moving away about a year later and my only witness having gone. That didn't help my credibility. It's been 10 years since then. I no longer live in Nova Scotia and actually live in the same town as my best Marie again. We still bring this up to each other every now and again, but refrain from telling most anyone else out of fear of being labeled crazy. My last words I'd like to say are pretty blunt. If you live in Nova Scotia, Canada, please be careful. There is something living in the woods, and it is not human. 8th story. Something in the woods. I was sitting in my front yard alone, next to the fire. It was about 10 p.m. when this first happened. Sitting there smoking a cigarette, I heard something meow in the trees about 30 feet away. I walked over after yelling for it, and then I heard a very pronounced, very human-like meow. I don't know how else to explain it other than a grown-ass man saying meow. I freak out and run to my neighbors thinking it's a monster or some shit. 10 seconds after I get inside, all of his power goes out. I run home and grab my gun, and then something ran across my yard. Ick what it was, but it wasn't an animal. I'm not crazy, I know what I saw, and no one will believe me. Update. Sorry guys, I had to work at 8 today, and just been kind of relaxing and going to the property and check some shit out, and I did find about 3 sets of deer tracks through the area where I heard the meowing, but other than that I haven't seen or heard anything else. Didn't mean to leave y'all high and dry. I honestly just got sidetracked and forgot to put in a little update. 9th story. Portal in the woods. Hi all. I have a story to tell from when I was a young kid. I'd say this occurred around 2006 to 2008. I haven't told many people about this because it's absolutely insane, but it happened. So here goes. My mom and I went camping in the woods of northern Wisconsin. When we arrived at the campground, we were the only people there, which was weird by itself, sure. Everything went semi-normal until our tent filled to the brim with spiders and we ended up sleeping in the car. It was about 2 to 3 a.m., and I was wide awake because I was just restless and almost paranoid someone was out there in the woods. I was looking out the left rear window when I saw a large portal open. I couldn't believe my eyes, so I pinched and slapped myself to make sure I wasn't dreaming. I definitely wasn't. I could feel the pain. As I watched, the portal got larger and wider, about 7 to 8 foot tall. It was bluish-green, almost like Rick and Morty, ironically. Immediately after this, I woke up my mom to see if she could see what I was seeing too. She did and freaked out a bit, and said, "Don't move and be quiet." I saw one humanoid figure come out with a lantern. He looked around and then gestured to the others to come out. I would say 5 to 6 people came out, almost in an Amish Mennonite sort of clothing. They all had lanterns as well. They gathered around each other and seemed to talk. Then one by one, they all entered the woods in single file line. The first man to walk out of the portal was the one to go back in the portal. After he got in, the portal closed, and we watched the humanoids walk into the woods until we couldn't see their light anymore. My mom immediately started the car, and we left in complete silence, and silent the entire car ride back home to Illinois. Ever since then, both my mom and I have been an avid believer of the paranormal and aliens. I'm wondering if anyone has ever seen anything like this before or experienced it before, because I know this sounds absolutely insane, but I swear it happened. Thanks for reading, and I'd love to hear similar stories, and hopefully not judging me too hard. Edit. Just contacted my mom, and the campground was Crazy Horse Campgrounds in Baraboo, Wisconsin, not Upper Wisconsin as I thought. When I called and told her about this thread, confirmed she saw exactly what I saw and still remembers it to this day. 10th story. There's something living in my woods. I live on a 13-acre property in an area of my state where the suburbs turn to rural farmland. My parents live in a main house near our road, while my fiancé and I converted one of the barns on the back half of the property into our house. Our house and another barn are set in a pretty wide clearing/pasture, but beyond that we're surrounded by woods on 3 sides. All of this is to say we don't get many visitors out here. From the time we moved into the house almost a year ago, there have been some occasions where I get this inexplicable feeling of terror while outside at night. I've lived in the woods my whole life, including in places far, far more remote than here, but I've never had this feeling. The woods are home. In every other place I've lived, they've felt like my woods. But not here. I've repeatedly had the feeling that I'm trespassing on someone else's land. Someone who is not happy to have me here. The other night, I took my dog out for his last walk. It was around 11 p.m., so it was pitch black outside the ring of light cast by the floodlights on the side of the house. As I was walking toward the edge of the tree line, where my pup likes to do his business, I heard a sound like someone imitating the hoot of an owl coming from the direction of the other barn about 30 yards away to our right. I was so certain that it was a human making the noise that I called out, "Ha ha, very funny, Dad." I assumed it was my father closing up the barn for the night, and he was taking the opportunity to try to spook me. No one called back. It was at this point that my dog lifted his head from sniffing all over and froze, staring in the direction of the barn. His hair stood up along his spine, and he started to give a low, menacing growl. Now this dog is obsessed with all people and animals. Everyone is a friend waiting to be made. I've never seen him act aggressively toward anything, even other dogs that have tried to fight him. My dad especially is his favorite person on the planet, so there's no way he would have started growling at him. It was my turn for all the hair on my neck to stand up as a cold wave of fear hit me like a brick. My dog had stopped right at the edge of where the light met the darkness of the woods. Normally, the light gradually dissipated into the trees, still providing enough visibility to see the outline of trees and shrubs. But this time it ended with a solid wall of black. Suddenly, I heard the same fake owl sound from only a few feet away, just on the other side of the darkness. My dog jumped and immediately started barking, putting himself between me and the sound. He's only a little guy, so I darted forward, scooped him up, and took off running toward the house. Behind me, I heard the sound again, but this time it had a strange warble to it, almost like laughter. The next morning when I went out to check on the barn, I found that the doors had been partially broken off the slide and were swung past each other the wrong direction, like someone had tried to force them open the wrong way. There were no signs of footprints in the sawdust or dirt, or any other signs of an intruder. I have no idea what was out there that night, but suffice to say, my dog and I stay well within the floodlights when we go out after dark now. Thanks a lot for watching the video. Till the end, subscribe to Horror in Detail for more videos. Drop your suggestions in comment section.